Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the behind the scenes for Tacos N Tequila, and thanks for watching the video. This is the second episode of my docu-series, Small Town Savories. If you haven't already, you should check out the first episode of Pizza Pie. That one kind of took off, and I was pleasantly surprised that YouTube recommended it to a lot of people. So that's really cool. It kind of skyrocketed for a month and it's really dropped off now. But this is behind the scenes of Tacos N Tequila. It's just kind of a recap of what went down and how I feel about how I did things, and just kind of reflect on what I can do better. And if anyone's interested in watching behind the scenes and checking out gear or talking about gear, then this is the place to be. So glad you're here. This is day one. I was checking out Fernando's backyard kitchen that he built himself with a friend. This is so fascinating. This kind of stuff makes me jealous. I wish I have something very similar in my backyard where we can host family and friends and cook pizzas or do barbecue. So seeing this got me excited. And this is just for them, nothing to do with a restaurant, but I wanted to show how important food and being great hosts is to this family. I think it's impressive that, for work, they do this, and in their personal lives outside of work, they do this as well. So it's like a very passionate thing of theirs. Tacos N Tequila is in Normandale, which is a small town of, I think, 300 people. Fernando is such a laid-back dude. He's very into the mountain biking scene in Turkey Point, which is right down the road from this restaurant, which is also their home. They converted the Normandale Century Inn into their home, kept it partially as an inn, and they have a restaurant. So they're super busy. But Fernando does a ton of mountain biking. I think it's a 2-minute bike ride to the trails, which is, I think, 90 kilometers of mountain biking trails. He's asked me to come with him, but I don't think I'm in the right shape to do that. So these guys are from Mexico. They came here about 14 years ago, and they continue to eat their cuisine. Basically every meal is what you see on their menu. Like the moment I met them, we shook hands. Maria gave me a hug and then was like, "Here, sit," and like had breakfast ready for me. So I had like chorizo sausage tacos. Was not expecting this. I just had like Tim's, just a sugary breakfast, and then I got fed tacos, and it was very nice. After meeting them, I felt like I had not seen old friends in a long time. We just hit it off right away. But then again, I'm kind of chatting to them about food, something we both have in common, so I feel it's very easy to get along with people when it's food-related chatter. My father-in-law sometimes complains that I talk about food too often. So this is day one. So my process for day one was just meet and run and gun shoot, ask them on the fly questions, and get some action shots. So again, I shot this very wide. So I learned what they were chatting about in the moment had nothing really to do with what they were doing. So if they were making tacos, they would be talking about moving here to Canada. And that's my fault. So I learned the hard way after skimming through day one's footage. I shot way too wide. I got the talking head of stories or the history of moving here when I should have just waited for the interview. I think for these run and gun shots, they should be talking about in the moment things. Like if they're making tacos, let's talk about the tacos. What goes in the tacos? And that's straight up my fault. I'm shooting this kind of backwards. Normally, I'd shoot the interview and meet them and do run and gun, but I shot the interview last, which I guess works in a way because I already built a story and needed some pickups or some sound bites. So I kind of prompted them to get that story out after I had already built a timeline. So this is day 2 footage. I'm sure in the video you've noticed many outfit changes. And because I did this backwards, it required me to go back for a few days. So I learned my lesson, meet them, do the interview, have them talk about topics that I might not have even thought of, and try and get shots of those things. I feel like that's very grade school stuff that for some reason I just decided not to do. So I met them, I shot a lot of wide stuff. I needed to go back for day 2 to get prep and tights. And those 2 days were mornings, and I had no real action of dinner. So I needed to go back for a day 3. That day ended up being pushed because that day was insanely busy, and I was supposed to interview them after the dinner rush. But everyone was kind of tired and sweaty. It was a very hot day. So I pushed it, went back for day 4, which you will see soon. It rained out. We got rained out. I pushed it another day, went back for day 5, and just said, screw it. We'll do the interview inside. And that was it. 5 days shooting for this video. Kind of crazy. Luckily, they're about 10 minutes down the road from me. So day 2 was a lot of prep. Filming Fernando do his morning prep. Got a lot of tights. These guys hooked me up with some merch. You can see my shirt. It's the Taco Folk shirt that you see Fernando wearing in the interview. Super generous. They hooked me up with clothing and food. I feel like this is the first time I had enchiladas, and Maria was very shocked to hear that, because that's almost like saying you have not had a cheeseburger in America. Enchiladas are basically the main dish of Mexico. Here's day 3. I was not expecting the dinner rushes to be so packed. It was very busy. This was maybe a month after meeting them. Things were just postponed. I got real busy with actual other work. And so a month later, it's the summer and the kitchen is just wild. They have staff working. It's not just Fernando and Maria, which in the off season, it's just the 2 of them operating. But for the summer, they need the help. So they just have staff come in, and it was kind of wild. I didn't know what to do in this kitchen. Like, you can see how giant I am, and it's almost like a gridlock. Like, you go in one spot and they're like, oh, I need to go in there. And you're like, oh no. And then so you move in some other spot, you get in the way. So I needed to get as much chaotic cooking as possible for day 3. But after a while of being in the way, I needed to move to the patio and force myself to bug customers and get their, I guess, testimonials on how great the food is. So I pressured myself into chatting with the customers. You know how awful it is when you're sitting down for dinner and the waiter or waitress comes by and they catch you mid-bite? Imagine that, but the waitress is filming you. I stepped out there to make my presence known. I wanted people to know that there was a giant man with a camera. So I kind of waltzed out there and stood around for a bit for people to understand that filming was being done here. And then as I got comfortable, I kind of bugged the customers. But it was mostly the customers outside the perimeter of the patio. Even though I felt super uncomfortable bugging customers, apparently a lot of them were like, oh, I wanted to be in this video. And I was hesitant in filming. But every interaction that I've had with a customer ended up being very positive. I met a lot of people that are super nice and basically networking. And once they hear what I'm doing, they're very intrigued and excited to be in this video. Even though I think it's a big bother to a lot of people, it's actually the opposite. Nothing but good came out of these interactions. So here's the postponed interview. We were supposed to do this day 3 after the dinner rush, but everyone was very sweaty and worn out. So I decided to do it in their backyard kitchen. But we got rained out, and after looking at the footage, this is just a dummy mistake by me, but that table is very orange. And it's bouncing right up into their chins, and it just doesn't look good. So you'll see here, the weather changes very drastically, and we get rained out. And so they actually had a gathering. Fernando was cooking a goat for family, and when we got rained out, went inside, the family was there waiting, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do this when the family's here. So we postponed for the next day. This is day 5. I decided to shoot this a little different. Normally, I would shoot tight on the side, but I'm shooting wide on the side and shooting tight on the main camera. So the camera that I'm manning right now has the audio, and I'm doing the tights because I'm manning it. The unmanned camera beside me on the left is my B cam, which is shooting wide. Because I'm shooting solo, this is just the way it had to be. If you actually look back at the rained out interview, you can see that I got them looking at the main camera, which is the right way. Like, the main camera is wide, I'm shooting tight, but I'm asking them to look at a camera that has nobody behind it. And for me, that just made me feel uncomfortable that I'm making them be interviewed by no one who's there. So I'm like, okay, let's do this the right way. I'm like, you can just look at me. So after 5 days of going back and filming, I got the interview and I called it a day. We ended with a hero shot of them. Anyway, that's all for now. Until next time. I polled people on whether I should shoot Caribbean, shawarma, or fries. Shawarma actually won, but since Ribfest is around the corner, I might actually jump on that real quick. So anyway, this is very scatterbrained, but hopefully it was enjoyable. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Lovely.
Raindrops are falling on my head. I felt too.